What's going on, my fellow Jedi and Padawans? Welcome back to another Jedi gaming video. Thank you guys so much for coming back to the channel, and if you guys are new, welcome. Today we're going to be talking about the Pantheon Gauntlet of raid bosses, which this week we have 4 different bosses to go through, including Golgoroth, the Caretaker, our nice planet encounter from Ron, as well as that nice squishy old Atraks. So we are going to cover each of those little individual encounters for y'all with the changes that came out as well, because there is a few little changes that definitely add some difficulty to each of these encounters, but we are rewarded greatly for completing this and just getting our triumphs as well. We get some rewards from those, so this is a very good, very fun encounter in my opinion, especially for those people who have not been able to get into raids consistently to get the weapons, because we were also able to get some red borders from the normal drops of this as well. So it is a very good way for that raid loot to get spread to everybody for free. So our first encounter that we're going to get into is within King's Fall with that Golgoroth Encounter, the gigantic ogre with that gross looking slime and drops all over it. So this encounter runs pretty normal to what it was inside of King's Fall. There isn't anything really too different besides a couple different enemies that spawn inside of the room. So first off, like always, you're going to have 2 runners for this encounter, or 2 people taking the gaze, I should say, 1 for each of the sides of the room. The other 4 people will be down in the center, standing inside of the drops that fall down from the ceiling inside of that gross little center, which allows you to do damage on Golgoroth. They will be doing DPS, the other 2 will be taking the gaze, so he doesn't kill everybody standing down low. Now, the difference with the people standing down low doing DPS, 2 people instead of 1 will get the debuff that when you get it, it'll actually count down and explode. So you have to be underneath Golgoroth, or at least away from the other 2 people, as well as the runners, so you don't explode and defeat your fellow guardians. So it does make it a little tricky, but having 1 versus 2 really isn't that big of a difference. On top of that, when we are preparing for the damage phase, we do have some different enemies popping out, with a extra set of ogres that pop out in the very back of the room instead of those witches, as well as a nice yellow bar knight that'll spawn. So it is some extra tough enemies. Now, for the people that are taking the gaze in this encounter, the mechanics are basically the same for you. Count down with each other, shoot the back to take the gaze from the other person while shooting the Axion darts that are coming at you. This time there is going to be some extra invisible taken minotaurs that have the potential to come up all the way to the front of the room, so it adds an extra little bit of difficulty for staying alive when those are up. So make sure you have on, since you're not doing damage on the boss, your 4 teammates should be able to do it within no problem at all. 1 or 2 phases depending on how the encounter goes, but make sure I threw on an LMG Thunderlord, something like that, so you can clear out those ads, shoot the balls all in one kind of go. And then I was using a sniper at Succession to shoot Golgoroth's back to take the gaze, and then they were just doing damage with whatever supers and weapons they had to do the damage. So we got it done very easily, and with each encounter, each boss that you beat, you will get 1 Adept drop from that, as well as a couple different, I got 1 armor piece and 1 normal weapon from the chest as well. So it was a good spread of loot from each of the raids, kind of differently. We had a lot this week actually from King's Fall. I had 1 also from Root of Nightmares, so it was spreading around the love, with as well 1 from Deepstone Crypts. So it is a nice variation of the loot that we're going to get every single week. After you take down Golgoroth and collect all of that wonderful loot, we head on to the Caretaker Encounter from the old Vow of the Disciple raid way back a couple years ago. this is a very easy encounter as well, even with the additional changes. So the same kind of premise and running factor that you had in the original version of the Caretaker. You have two people staying down low with the Caretaker, which is a similar version of Golgoroth, just with shooting its back and taking its gaze so it doesn't work its way up the path towards the totem. That'll be two people's jobs. They just keep bouncing back and forth who has his gaze and shoots the other in the back, or I should say shoots the Caretaker in the back to take it from the other person. There will be two people doing ad clear in the main room, which from the gameplay is what I was doing for this run right here. We just do the ad clear normally. There are more of the worms that are flying around in the sky. That is one of the changes. As well, for my ad clear, there is a bunch of different enemies that spawn that are new. There's a couple taken ogres, a couple taken phalanxes as well. So there are some extra enemies in the main room that spawn that you have to take care of while staying on top of your duties of clearing out the normal ads as well as those beats. For the runners, they said that inside the room it was pretty much the same with collecting your 3 symbols, coming out, shooting it for the totem, except for there are a couple of bees inside of the room flying around, so you do got to be watching out for that, or those worms that when they hit you, they give you that pervading darkness. So you do got to be a little careful. They will slow you down if you're running in there. Just make sure you go in knowing your symbols so you guys can talk to each other with you and your partner and shoot it off of the totem so it doesn't explode and you can fill it up for our damage phase. Now, we were able to do this in 2 phases, which the way that we do it is on that first plate, you do as much damage as you possibly can on that boss, with our abilities doing some pretty good damage this season as well, especially with the modifiers for this Pantheon here. Do as much damage on that first plate, then on the second plate of the damage phase, you just barely scratch him with a little bit of damage here and there, making sure to take care of the worms flying around the most. Then at that third plate for the floor that you are on, juice as much damage as you can into the boss, and we took him down to half health very easily on that first floor. Went up to the second floor, just did a rinse and repeat of the runners going in, doing their thing, the people on the outside taking the Caretaker's gaze, and then the other people doing your ad clear. Once again, same kind of rotation. Do the first plate as much damage as you can, little bit of damage on the second plate, and then once you get to that third plate of the floor, absolutely juice them. Should get to the final phase, and as soon as you get up to the top, unlike before when you had to step on the plate to start for final stand, it'll start immediately. So when you get up there, just start damaging as fast as you can. Once you defeat him again, you will get that nice Adept with the chest as well as a normal weapon and a piece of armor, so the loot is getting spread around for everybody. Third encounter was our hardest for our little group. We only had to do it 3 times instead of we got the other ones on our first clears, but there is a bunch of little things that definitely made it harder for this third encounter, which is the planet encounter from Ron. So the differences inside of this encounter is there will be a tormentor that comes up once you move the planets right before you start your DPS phase. When you have to set up those 3 center plates for the DPS rotation, there is a tormentor that pops up. So that is one of the reasons why it was a little hectic for our first time through. The second option, or the second difference I should say in this, is that on the plates and where you grab the planets for those people that are running, there is a gigantic fire tornado that goes on these plates and bounces around, which does so much damage. It is very easy to die, especially if you're one of the runners crossing from left to right, exchanging those planets. So be careful for that as a runner. So I would throw on that solar surge or solar damage resist as much as you can. And then on top of that, there is a couple extra centurions that pop up in the upper limits of the map that'll shoot down on you, so you got to be careful for that, especially when you're taking care of the planet Giant Centurion with the nice Gatling gun, that heir apparent that we have, if you will. So it is the same mechanics for the encounter, just with those little changes and a lot of extra enemies, especially that little tormentor. The mechanics are the same. You will have 2 people in the center area just clearing ads, make sure they are keeping up with that. Then you will have 4 runners, 2 on the left, 2 on the right. You will name your planets based on whatever your group wants. The way we do it is 1 through 6, going from the front of the room where we throw down the flag all the way to the back where the boss is. That is number 6. So the way it'll work is, I was a runner here with Perception. We would call out which one of our planets was different, so I had to find which planet was the red or dark planet and grab it, take it over to his side on the right hand side, which he had the opposite. He has 2 dark planets and 1 light. He will tell me which one that is. He'll grab that planet, bring it to my side, and that's what Planet Encounter is. They are just switching which planets should be on which side. The left should be all white planets, and the right should be all of those red and dark planets. So you will be able to see that after you defeat that giant yellow bar Centurion that spawns with the Gatling gun. So it is a very easy encounter once you get the mechanics down, as well as those little extra enemies. But then you just do DPS like normal. Make sure you are going on your plates in an alternating order, doing DPS on the boss in the center, and then once you complete it, little final stand, of course, you collect that nice Adept weapon, as well as get yourself the chest, which has that little armor piece and extra raid weapon in it, which it does have the chance to be the red border, like I said. Very much, at least in my opinion, the hardest encounter to get used to, and then once we did it, it was just the same as it always was. Last but certainly not least, we got the Atraks encounter from Deep Stone Crypt, one of its bosses. Very easy to get through. We one-phased it with a couple thunder crashes, as well as that worm exotic grenade launcher. We were able to juice the boss, getting it done very quickly. So the differences with this encounter: there is going to be a tormentor up top that you have to watch out for, so you have to be careful for that. But also, it starts at the bottom layer first, and then it'll teleport up top. So that is an aspect to it. But in all seriousness, if you're one-phasing it like we did here, you don't have to worry about the Tormentor, because once it goes into Final Stand, that Tormentor disappeared for us. So we didn't even have to worry about it to get that defeat. We just went through it normally. But there will be that to really take care of. On top of that, there wasn't too much of changes, just some extra enemies that are sniping, some extra shielded enemies on top as well when they come out, as those servitors do. Nothing else really different in the encounter with getting damage to start. Just make sure you have one person up top, grab that scanner so you can see which one of the enemies is the one that you have to do damage on, and then the person on the bottom is the operator, so they will come up with that second person who is down low. There's 2 down low, 4 up in space, so once they get up there is when we do that damage, and once it starts, you just absolutely juice Atraks. Very easy to get through. There isn't anything else you really have to worry about this. If you do happen to not one phase it, like I said, make sure you take care of the Tormentor, as well as the operator will have to watch out for somebody, as well as everybody else will have to watch out if they get the debuff from Atraks that drops, which is an extra charge actually of it. They will be glowing and have a counter going down. There will be an airlock around the upstairs. Make sure that they go into one of those airlocks. The operator will shoot the keypad to suck out that extra Atraks drop, if you will, and then it'll be able to be defeated, and that person can come back out of the airlock, so you don't have to worry about it at all with the extra buff. So make sure that you're just doing this the same. Very easy to get through, and once you complete it, you have our bot at the back, or right here next to the chests, where you can actually buy your exotics. This week we got the Eyes of Tomorrow, as well as the Touch of Malice, so it is a nice little bit for, like I said, those people who aren't going into raids consistently. You have the option to get any of the gear this week from the Deepstone Crypt, as well as those couple exotics with the option of ciphers, as well as those Ascendant shards. But once you pick that top row, they will go away and then be gone for that week, but you can still get whatever with your spoils from the Deepstone this week from each encounter, or if you need a red border, it'll also give you that option. Now, last but certainly not least, on top of the Adept weapons that we got from finishing those encounters, which had fixed masterworks, when you complete each week, there's going to be these triumphs right here. This week we had the Conquer the Crypt, Rising High, as well as Mountain's Peak. I also got Adept weapons for these two down here in Mountain's Peak and Rising High, so 2 different scores. And on top of that, the best part about it is when you actually go to these weapons, I got the Zawuli's Bane as one of them. You can pick which masterwork you want to throw on this, so you can pick and choose and make this thing even better than it was. It was the exact same with Smite of Moraine right here, giving us the ability to pick our masterwork, which is absolutely disgusting in my opinion, making this a even better potential for loot than it was with Pantheon, being, I think, probably an S tier loot farm for those people. Now, I will say that you only get those adepts on your first clear every single time you go through it, once per character per week, so you can get up to that 12 adepts based on defeating 4 bosses on 3 characters every single week. So that is a lot of loot, and especially since this is free for everybody, you will have to use Fireteam Finder to find 6 people to go through, but like I said, totally worth it. We got through in about 50-55 minutes, nothing too crazy, just getting used to some of those different mechanics. So we'll definitely go through it faster next time, and in the next couple weeks we're going to get slowly added 1 boss every single week with some extra loot being thrown in the pool. So that is a great way for y'all to get some of this free raid loot for sure. And again, hopefully this is helping you guys out, these guides, god roll guides, builds, stuff like that. So I appreciate all you for doing that. Keeping up with the channel means a lot to me. Don't be afraid to slap that bell, like, and subscribe if you haven't. Helps me out a bunch, helps out the channel as well. So again, I appreciate all you guys. Get into this Pantheon, get those raid weapons for free, and I will catch you guys in the next one. Peace.